first 100 days, a very definite agenda that he's going to go after aggressively, while everybody is fresh in their places and nobody's gotten into divisions or anything like that. So about the next 6 months is going to be like really exciting.
Yep. If we do it right, we will not recognize this country.
Yeah.
And this is his second term, so this is legacy term, so he's got everything to lose in the sense of if this is messed up, I don't have another chance of leaving something behind that will
like
reverberate into the future.
You got your prize.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do with it?
I have a video of all the things that changed in the last 72 hours around the world. All the leaders and all the changes that took place in the last 72 hours, recognizing we better not mess with this, and they're coming up and saying, okay, what do we got to do to get in line, because we know it's not going to happen anymore like it was.
Yeah. Chuck Schumer is not the leader of the Senate anymore. Yeah. One of the people that graded me terribly. I'm just so happy for that one,
I seen the evidence.
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh, man.
Just keep writing that. Deception is not, we see it, we don't fall for it, we stand up against it.
Oh. So I wonder where everybody is today. It's a rainy day.
Well, there's a lot going on with my crew.
Yeah. But the Lord is good. He's on the throne.
Yeah. So we have the party today at 2 o'clock at the gym.
Yeah.
And in the last 48 hours, it went from something that didn't exist to what it is. It's in 48 hours this all happened, and it happened without orchestration. Okay. But yesterday, Brendan, I was getting to a point where, hey, another 6 hours, we'll have this. He started having fun. And he ran up a warp wall. They were horsing around, and he goes do a backflip off the warp wall and land on some mats. His foot didn't hit where it was supposed to. He goes flying off of it, and he lands on a wet back. So he goes from 10 feet up in the air, hits something, and then my son.
Oh.
And then he stands up, and he's going to shake it off like a macho man does. And then, Dad, and the next thing, blood's coming out of him. He ruptured his lungs, and they're bleeding out.
Oh.
And it was good, because right then and there, we didn't question anything. We just went straight into it and started speaking to his body.
Yeah.
And all these young people are watching me just pray in the Spirit and then start commanding and telling them what their minds should be and where we're going with this and what's going to happen. And they all responded. And today we're going to be doing a celebration for Sandy's birthday. The gym's going to be opening up, and what wasn't going to happen is happening.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Has he stopped spitting up blood?
I haven't seen him.
Oh, okay.
But I assume he is, yes. They told him for the next 10 days, every hour he's got to take that lung machine and just go to force out the coagulation and stuff that took place inside. And as one who coughed up pints of blood, I know what he went through.
Oh my. What's his first name?
Brendan.
Okay.
Yeah. When I got the news, I think Sandy has texted Jennifer, and then said, oh goodness, Lord. I went in the room, I started praying and saying, Lord, you got to stop this thing. Whatever, I didn't have the details of what happened. I just heard that, hey, he was doing a stunt and things went wrong. So my mind went all over what went wrong, what really happened. So I said, okay, I don't have the detail. I don't want to call them now. And so, but I'm gonna go in the room and just pray. So I kept on praying. Said, Lord, I don't want to explain what happened to ask you, okay, do this or the other. You know better. You know what's going on there. So I just prayed and.
He told me not to be so specific what's going on, just call the ones that speak life into them. That's all that was necessary.
Yeah.
You get into the details, then all of a sudden you start thinking all the possibilities of the detail. When you just go, this is what I need.
Yeah.
Right.
sometimes we want to pray a diagnostic prayer of Lord, you know this is not going right. This heart vein is this. And sometimes all those details, they might be good for us, but are they necessary really? All I know is something is not right here, and we want to trust the Lord and pray for its healing. You know, so yeah. But that was quite a scary moment just to get that news. Goodness, what?
I called Jennifer and I said, I'm not going to explain a lot. I'm just going to say, please listen, and this is what I need. And I wanted her to know where I was at, so that everybody would come where we were at. You don't have to pump us up. You don't have to tell. We're already there. Now just come join us.
I tell you, I have gotten so disappointed with Facebook. I just don't even want to look at it anymore. Just before we come here on Saturday and Sunday morning, I look and say, okay, is there anything I missed? And it's advertisement after another.
Yeah.
And then it's like 10 of us later, then there's something from the church. And then again, it's saying, I'm looking, that's not the way that's supposed to be working. You know, if that's going to be our communication to the church, we can't do that. You know, we can't have. Finally, this morning, I just said, wait a minute. I spent 20 minutes on it, and I couldn't find anything I needed. So
I've been trying to figure it out because George knows what I'm doing, and I told you, I was told to put everything on display. And when you get this, and you've already been displaying stuff, then you go, okay, now here's where we show the rubber meets the road. And how do I stay in the moment, document this, and encourage people? It's been a fun thing. But the goal of posting all that was to get everybody to see I'm no different than you guys. God's doing the same thing in your life, and each one of us, we're posting what God has done in our lives and what he's doing and what our expectations are and all that stuff. All the programming that the world puts out is now nullified because he is exalted. All the things to say what this life is about goes dim because we're looking at him and stuff. So that's what Facebook does for me. That's what it's just to show God.
If you got to get something out of an emergency and you go to Facebook, I don't know.
That's how I started hitting Messenger. direct.
Yeah.
Is Sandy going to be here?
I don't know. It's her birthday, and her mind is going party stuff. And I said, "Come on, Martha, come on."
I'm sure she's trying to figure out what she has to do.
So yesterday, at the exact time, we're 10 seconds apart. I got a can of sealant that I'm putting on. I'm walking, and I drop it. It goes all over. She calls me. She just dropped her birthday cake. They go, nope, this ain't happening. We're going through this.
Hey, wait a minute, I can fix that. I get some sealer here.
Yeah.
But I don't know where Sherry is today.
Sorry.
Maybe she didn't vote and she doesn't want to say that. So Kathy is running late today. She ran late last night, and she's got children's church that will have children in it today, I think.
Well, it's just us here and stuff. The gym is going to be ready for us to do ministry to the boxers, and I want to set up this kind of atmosphere where they can discuss it. Whitney tells me what he gets out of it. BJ, I've been sending them the videos and stuff. They're all saying, yes, this is what we need to be. We need to know the scripture and know how it applies to us. And so, in the next few weeks, I'd really like to see us get something going there if you're interested. The next 2 months, I'm just watching, and in my mind, I see where the kingdom is going, and I'm just seeing that by being on display, people are going to say, yeah, they're not playing around. I want to be a part of this.
birthday!
If we had those things, we would, you know, put Good morning.
Well, I don't want to interrupt anything.
Nice to meet you.
We were just discussing practical stuff since we're just here. I was asking about the men's group and
That's
stuff. And she's good. She's gone through a lot, but she's good, right? Today.
I'm gonna be really tired, but okay. Forgot to grab like a energy thing or anything. So hopefully
Here,
I
I'll
don't
share.
fall asleep. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I don't know what kind of practical things you were talking about, but
Just what happened and what's going on, where we're going as a country, what we're doing individually, just encouraging one another.
okay. I was just talking to a friend, Karen called me on the way, and I was saying about Sunday school, and I don't know if you guys had discussion about that, about is there a better time or something that more people could participate? You guys are doing some good work and good stuff and teaching really good stuff, and we're learning, but it's just like, you know, when there's 3-4 people, you know, is there a
Well, that's why
better
we
time
started
for us?
recording and stuff to get it and things, but yes, when we walk out of here, each time I walk out, my vision of God has been increased, which then allows me to again to enter His presence so quickly.
Yeah, it's good stuff. That's what I'm saying.
Well, early on, we were told that the Sunday school before church is just like, that's not going to work. And it was like, wait a minute, what do you mean it's not going to work? So
It's the effort of the people.
we actually celebrated our first anniversary just a few weeks ago.
Yep.
So we've been
Really?
doing this for a year now.
Wow.
And I take the count of everybody in the church on Sundays and obviously here. And we've been averaging 25% of the population of the
attendance in
church shows up here. It's usually between 6 and 8 people. And you know, that's about 25% of who.
It's been consistent that way.
So, you know, I'm trying to think of, we've talked about, is there another time? But we've had small groups fail, and it just doesn't seem like there's another time. But once people are in church, now if we can just talk to people that are in church to wake up an hour earlier, then we could fill this room.
We could just stay in that now.
When we started this, discussed myself and Ron and Jeff, the one thing that I was really praying for, and I think I shared with them, is if we can keep something consistent, if we keep on doing it, whether we have more people or less,
Right.
it sends an encouraging message to those who are joining and those who might join. One of the challenges that's been that I observed in the past was some ideas may start, but they quickly lose momentum. They start for a couple of weeks or a month, and then they fade away. You know, at one point we started a worship night on a Friday night, or it's going to be once a month, and we did 1 or 2 months, and then it fades away.
Like, oh, are we
No.
doing that? Oh no, we don't do that anymore.
Yes.
We're doing that. Oh,
And
we don't do that
then now,
anymore. And
if
then-
you want to restart that, you're restarting something that have failed, and you're going to have to convince people, okay, let's give it another try. One of the ways of growing something is keep that consistency. Keep doing
It's
it.
dependable,
Keep doing it. And I think this study has proven that we've committed to keep on teaching, whether we have 5, 6 people, 8 people. And I think that consistency allowed it to get where we are, and for the core group of people attending to keep learning together. Now, is it ideal? No, we would want to have more people join in. What else can be done? For me, it's not really as much changing the time for this one, but option might be, hey, whether it is the recording, for those who may pick up the recording, that's one way to draw from this, or is it possible to create another slot for another type of Bible study for a different day, different time that may work with time frame of another segment of the group of the population in the church, probably we can investigate and look into that. Is it possible to create another Bible study? It's not necessarily a duplicate of this, but like at one point, I think Don started a Bible study via Zoom on a Thursday night, and probably some people were attending that were not attending the morning one. So it still allows people to have some measure of study of the Word and draw something out of it. But changing the morning time for a Sunday, it's gonna just send a message that we don't want to send of a disruption.
It's gonna just naturally go, and the consistency of everybody that's here right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk amongst ourselves and saying, okay, you getting something out of this? Well, let's encourage the others. What did you get out of this? Why are you coming here?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. So
So I think with the people that we have in the church now, I think if we said, let's do something on another time, I think that's gonna be doomed for failure, because the same people who tried it before, it's failed 2 or 3 times already. That's probably not. As we get some other people into the church, they may be more receptive to something else, or even be more receptive to coming in on Sunday morning. So
It's gonna happen.
just as an aside, I did a Bible study at Corning Incorporated, and I started it because I was laying in bed in the summer because I was sick, and I thought it was a tick bite. It wasn't, but it was that kind of a thing. And I was laying there, and I said, and I just felt helpless because I wasn't doing anything. I said, Lord, I know I'm not dying, but I haven't done anything for you. What is it that you want me to do? I said, but just don't send me to Papua New Guinea. This is and then as soon as I said that, I heard a Bible study at work. What? And then I said, how about Papua New Guinea? Really, that happened in about 1 minute. And
It's
I
like,
I
it wasn't
remember that
you,
really
it was him, not you, because.
because, there was not a lot of that, of Christianity being displayed at work. And there's always one of those things about, you want to declare to everybody. And, I was cautious about that too. And a lot of people are. And so finally, I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And so one of the other guys that I work with, who was a Christian, we had coffee because I wanted to ask his opinion. So I told John, here's what I think happened. I think God told me to start a Bible study. And to my disappointment, John said, that's a great idea.
wow.
So I said, okay. So I started the Bible study. We probably had about 8 people the first day, because people were just curious to find out what's going on, what are you doing. And I didn't know how to do a Bible study. I'd never done one before. And so I was stumbling my way through, and over the course of the next month or two, the next 2-3 months, the 8 dropped to 6, and then it dropped to 4, and then at one point it was dropping to 2 people. And then I was sitting, it was always lunchtime on Thursdays. It was the same room all the time. And finally it got to the point where I got there, and I got there at before 12 like always, and I sat there for half an hour and nobody else came. And I said, that's it, Lord. I've tried this, it's not working, this is the last time. So that's it. And I picked up my Bible and I closed it, and then 2 women walked in, and both of them had the gift of, I don't know what, encouragement, friendship, whatever. And both of them are older than I was, and so we just sat there and we talked a bit, and then we prayed, and then went out. And I said, okay, Lord, I'll give it another try, because both of them came. And the next week it was like 4, and then it got to be a constant 8 to 12 people all the time. There was about 20 people were involved, but when you do it in a corporate environment, people are traveling and meetings and all that. So But anyway, it wound up going 20 years before I retired, and it had several hundred people had participated in one way or another, and we had a prayer network that went out from that. And I was just praying that, Lord, when I retire, just send somebody else to take this over. And wouldn't you know, about 3 weeks before it ended, one of the guys said, "Can we have lunch together?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "Well, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think God told me to take over the Bible study." I said, "Thank you, Lord," because he's just the guy that I would have asked. I didn't want to put a burden on him. And God taught them. That Bible study's still going on. That started in October of 1990. So it just happened. But it got down to there was no people except those two women walked in. And when they walked in, I said, okay, I'm going to continue doing it at Thursdays at noon in this conference room. And it worked. And so I don't know that we can say that that's going to work here, because there's a limited population of people, but there's a point of stick with it, don't quit, keep doing it.
So the thing that's kept a lot of people from sharing their faith and stuff is some of it is the dogma and stuff like that, but it's like there's not a place to tap somebody and put them into. This is what discipleship portion of it that is important. So we are preparing for that harvest that's coming in. The individuals that are going to be involved where I'm at, they're looking for stability. They want to know how to conduct themselves, how to think, and this is the type of thing that's going to provide it.
A few years ago, I was teaching at the Bible school in South Africa, and one of my students, very new student, came to me and told me, "Hey, Pastor, would you be interested in coming to speak at my work?" And I was wondering, okay, what kind of talk do you want, corporate talk and stuff like that. So no, we have a fellowship of believers, and we meet once a week, but this is going to be a big one, a celebration of some sort. And I was thinking of asking you to come and speak. So I went there, had no idea what's going to be. And this is a government institution. It was the Department of Housing, Got there. To my surprise, the place was packed to close to 100 people.
Really?
Some of the top directors,
Yeah.
you could see I didn't know them, the way they were greeting them and allowing them to space to sit. Then I realized, but this is very strange. This is South Africa. It's really one of a very strong liberal constitution. So schools, no praying in schools, stuff like that. Government institution, you cannot do this kind of stuff. Then I asked them, how did this come about? Because I was not expecting that in a government institution such a program would be held. Right. And it started just exactly more or less like your story. Somebody just felt, hey, can we meet during our lunch break and just pray together? And that's how it started. When they approached the head of department to ask, can we have a time slot? We're going to give up our lunch times, but combine it to have about 30-40 minutes of prayer. And they told them, no, you can have the time, and it's still going to be paid, but you still can have your lunch time.
Yeah.
And that's how just favor broke in, and they were allowed to have these prayer meetings. And they've been going on until I spoke there twice, and extremely impressed by this is a government space, and apparently a couple of Muslims, a couple of times attended, they were invited, they would come and sit there as part of the study, the prayer programs and so on. And what a witness, and very, very, very secular environment, but yet God gave them favor to grow and keep growing, keep going, keep going. I think that part of consistency, just trusting the Lord, He will bring people in, He will allow us discipleship, whether it is between 2 or 3 people, it doesn't matter, as long as we're learning from one another, we're journeying together. That's the most important thing. The numbers will come, The numbers will come as a natural process.
Sure. And see, when you start something like that, you have no idea
You have no idea where it's
where it's
going.
gonna go.
Yeah.
You know, is it gonna fail or is it gonna grow or whatever? And, you know, the Thursday noon times was a special time for us because but it turned out that those people created a network amongst themselves
Yeah.
as well. And we had one of these, we could send a voicemail to a group of people. And so people were asking, can you send the prayer requests?
Yeah.
And at one point we had, it was like 280 people on the phone network getting messages. Some of them were vice presidents, which surprised me. But after I'd gotten this going a little bit, I went to our division vice president, and I just said, I just thought I'd let you know what I'm doing, you know, so that you don't hear something about it. And I told him what I was doing. He said, well, actually, I have heard about it. He said, go ahead, keep doing what you're doing. You know, you're doing it on lunch hours, that's what you want to do, go ahead. And so I got his blessing, and he was a Christian guy too. And so we saw in the Bible, one day we had 12 people there, and I said, how many people go to the same church? Nobody raised their hand. There's 12 different churches were there, and you know, two of them were Catholic churches, you know, and they were just, you named the others, they were there, and it got to be that kind of a fellowship where denominations could get together and do something. So when people say, "Oh, that'll never work. There's too many denominations here," I say, "Wait a minute. I've seen it work on this kind of a level.
Yeah.
It's got to be able to work on a larger level too. It hasn't here yet. It did in our area. That group of 30 churches got together as it wasn't because of the Bible study, but they had gotten together. But it does happen, and so we also saw 3 or 4 people converted to Christianity. 2 of them were Catholics. That they decided that I want to become an evangelical. They stayed near Catholic churches. That's okay, but they were evangelical Christians. You know, and we actually saw a couple of amazing healings, which was, you know, I still look back at it. It was, you know, one friend of mine who was Catholic. He turned out to be a great evangelical. His daughter was a grown-up, she was 20 years old or something. Brilliant woman, beautiful girl. She had a brain tumor right up here. And she was falling and whatever, and the doctors decided they had to take that out or else she's going to eventually die of it. And so they had a scheduled an operation. I went up with him during that, and I saw the x-ray. The x-ray looked like a piece of kabasi. Really, it was like that big, and it went like there about 5 inches. And they took that out right up here in the front part of the brain. And you go, boy, you know, are they going to even be able to talk afterwards? Turned out she recovered absolutely perfectly. And after it was done,
Just somebody you knew.
somebody in our Bible study, and I asked Marcos, could you bring her in someday? She said she'd love to do it.
Yeah.
So one of those even advertised that she's coming in. So it was like 16 or 18 people there this time because they wanted to find out. And they got to see this girl, this woman, young woman, perfectly normal with that part of her brain gone.
Yeah.
Oh my word. That's one of those things that really spread the word of the Bible study and the power of all the people praying. You know? So we don't know what's going to happen in here.
That was Brendan. I had to check in with him, but I didn't want to get it like texting in Sunday school. But it's just us. And I said, you know, tell me something good. How you doing? Or whatever. So he called me and he said honestly, he expected, you know, kind of that he'd be really sore this morning. All his muscles would hurt and everything. And he says my muscles don't even hurt. And he said, honestly, he said, I kind of feel, he said, I know something happened. He said, I kind of feel about like 95%.
Praise the Lord.
You know, we don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
I need to step out for a
Well,
second.
it's like, we gotta do what God, we gotta do what
Yeah,
God
yeah,
called
yeah.
us to,
Yeah.
and just keep doing it, whether we see it or not.
Yeah.
He'll take care of the rest, so.
Yeah. Yesterday, I picked up a post on Facebook. There's a contact, an acquaintance. I wouldn't really say a friend, but there's a man. He's been living in the US for 20 years. He runs a business, a safari business, taking people in different safari tour in Africa and so on. But he also owns a coffee shop in Louisville. But he ended up selling that coffee shop, and the new owners who bought the coffee shop have just advertised every Wednesday they have a Bible study, 10:30
Really?
to 12.
Really?
Yeah. Every Wednesday, the place is called Ntaba, so they call it Ntaba Bible Study. They sell primarily. They have a coffee shop, but also sell coffee beans from all over African countries that produce coffee. And so, but every Wednesday, the new addition to the new owners they brought in is every Wednesday, 10:30 to 12, there is a Bible study in the coffee shop.
Wow.
And when I saw that, I said, goodness, this is awesome. I sent them congratulations, and even already made contact with the new owners. And one day when I visit Louisville, I want to pop in and just be an encouragement to them. And that kind of, look here, people know that they will be coming in. They can come and buy their coffee, but there is a Bible study running right in the coffee shop.
But they risk their business by advertising that.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's-
they're getting rewarded. Oh,
That's quite daring, And I said,
scary, yeah.
whoa, this is beautiful.
Oh,
That's the post.
what's it called?
It's called Ntaba. Ntaba means mountain
Okay.
in Zulu. Yeah, it's called Ntaba Bible Study at 10:30 to 12:30 to 12 o'clock.
Okay. Oh man, that's exciting.
So
It really is.
it is exciting. Yeah. I don't know if we're gonna be able to do anything. I just wanted to read one verse, one or two,
We gotta
two
do
verses.
some Bible study.
Yeah, we've got to do some Bible study with coffee.
Okay, you got coffee, loaf, and
Yeah. Let's do. I've been reflecting, meditating on this particular section. I know I was supposed to finish chapter 1.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
No, it's not going to happen. Yeah, but just let's read. Let's read from verse 21. Yeah, 21 to 23. Just that section, and just reflect together for a moment. I know Ron will pick up from there next week. It says, once you were alienated from God and were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior. But now, he has reconciled you by Christ's physical body through death to present you holy in his sight, without blemish and free of accusation. If you continue in your faith, established and firm, not moved from the hope held out in the gospel. This is the gospel that you heard and that has been proclaimed to every creature under heaven, and of which I, Paul, have become a servant. What do you get from this? When I was reading it even this morning before coming, I just started laughing. I was so filled with excitement of how Paul sees the work of Christ in his life and being brought in. The joy and the pride of being connected to such a message, this gospel, this Christ, and what he has done. For him, it's like, this is the biggest prize anyone can boast about. And this gospel, I have become servant of this gospel. What gospel? The unpacking of this gospel, just related earlier, is just, it should move us to feel that level of excitement and pride that we're part of something way bigger than we can ever
He
imagine.
grasped then where he says later, I am not ashamed
Yes.
of this gospel.
Of this
The
gospel.
power that I
Yeah.
had. It's not, ooh, don't shame me like people try to make you what you think is bad. No,
Mhm.
I cannot be ashamed of this because I see, I do.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yo, just talk to me. How do you reflect on this section 21 to 23? What comes to your mind? What jumps up for you as you reflect on this long sentence from Paul? Very loaded, complex composition. Even in English, of course.
Right. There isn't a period.
He writes like me. I just throw in commas so I look like I don't know where to go.
That's where Pat has been following the Bible, like he's having punctuation.
I have a brother also hardly writes simple sentences,
But
subject,
that
verb,
was
and
his
predicate.
training that he was on. I gotta get everything out in this one thing. It shouldn't, again, if we can imitate Paul as he imitated Christ, as we can get where he's showing us his mindset and why he does it, and things, we can grasp that the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's there for. It's a gift for us to grab and do. So often in our Christian society, it's an aspiration, not fact. And we gotta say, this is fact of how we can do it.
Because the earlier section has been speaking, as we discussed last Sunday, about the preeminence of Christ. The preeminence of Christ through creation. Christ is number one over all. And not only is preeminent in creation, but he's also preeminent in redemption. In the work of redemption, he tops all. He is first in his work of creation. He's the head of the body. He's the beginning, the firstborn. This is in redemption. He is the first. And now he brings the Colossians to show them that actually you were alienated from this. Not only that you were alienated from this redemption, but you were enemies. No, you were enemies. Your mind was completely rebellious against this redemptive work, against this preeminence of Christ, his person, his work. That's the force. So if we understand you were alienated and enemies in your mind, yet, and that's the shift that he creates to show how drastic the change comes as they became Christian, as they were brought in. You were alienated, enemies, yet now you are reconciled. And it allows us to see the value of what Christ has done. That it's not something that we should take lightly. Yet you were reconciled through the blood of Christ. That you were reconciled in the body of his flesh through death. Through his death in his body. This idea really of the sacrifice that he has made is literally, Paul is emphasizing this idea. It's not just a spiritual idea. Literally, his body of Christ was dealt a blow. He sacrificed his body. He gave himself as a sacrifice for us to be reconciled, for that alienation and that enmity that we had with God to be removed. So something much was given to bring us to where we are. Not a reconciliation to take lightly that I belong in the family of God. It cost Christ his life.
And it's not something for the future. That price was for now. That's the thing. It's for now.
Well, he gives them that promise of the future too, though. Because he said, you were alienated and hostile in your attitude, that's your brain, but also in evil acts.
In evil acts.
So you're actually in your brain, but also you're doing things that are evil.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is you're reconciled through Christ so that he can present you as a perfect person to God. Okay. So we were talking about him telling the Colossians that, the way things are one thing, but it's getting better, and that you ought to have your mind on where you're going.
Right.
And he said, blameless and beyond reproach.
Sure.
From somebody who'd been alienated in attitude and deeds.
And suddenly,
Right.
how do we get from that to this? That's the drastic change that Christ is bringing. From being alienated, from being far from God, even enemy, ugly attitude, behaviors,
Right.
to be brought as holy, without blemish.
Yes.
That's how radical the change is.
Yeah.
In Christ, without blemish, with no accusation, there's nothing that can point at you. What have we done? What did I do? No, Christ has done. His body has allowed us to be perfected that much. That we become one with God. We become part, we become His, that God would accept us. And actually this acceptance is in the language of Paul even very strongly, that it presents us. It is him who is actually presenting us blameless. It's not our doing. The words are carefully chosen.
Yeah.
Present us blemish, without blemish, holy and without blemish. He does the work, and now he can present. Now look at them.
We gotta remember, and I've been telling myself over and over as we've been doing this, that the people he's writing to have never heard a lot of this ever before. Okay? It's not like, they passed that church on their way to whatever. It's a brand new idea that they've got to get in their heads. And he's trying to do that. And he's taking this is what you used to be like. You used to be alienated, you used to do evil deeds. And through Christ, and that's the first paragraph. And then it says, and through Christ's body, you are reconciled, and then you can be presented to God as complete and blameless. So when you say, how'd you get from here to there?
Yeah.
And it doesn't say, because you've done 100 things. You've given to the church, you've helped old ladies across the street. There's none of the deeds in there. The only thing that gets you from there to there is Jesus reconciling you through his death. So he gets the whole thing in one very, very long sentence.
Yep.
But that's what the point is.
That's the point.
I'm sure that's what they would ask. So how do we get there? How do we get from here? And it's through Christ's body.
Yeah. Because both the majority Greek or Greek church members who were there will have no idea that actually they would not even consider themselves worthy to be joined to God. The Jewish even more so, because they understand how unworthy they are and the requirement demanded of them to actually come before God. They grew up with this understanding, the few Jewish who might be part of the congregation, that a high priest need to offer sacrifice every year and to speak on our behalf. This idea of being presented before God or coming before the Lord, it's an alien idea. It's impossible to even think of it. None of them can even begin to consider that I can actually approach God. They are not worthy to do that. They need a priest to be a go-between to speak on their behalf, so God can at least accept them. And this is what Paul is writing to the Colossians, is removing this idea, both for the Greek and for the Jews, that actually, yes, somebody else has done that. A sacrifice has been offered, and the one who has done it, who's holy, who is able to stand before God, who's actually presenting you. you cannot bring yourself there because there's nothing you can do to actually qualify to be accepted by God. He does it, he perfects us, and he presents us to the Father. In his sight, holy, blameless, without accusation in his sight. That's, and all of this is part of this elaboration of the preeminence of Christ in redemption. There's no one else who's able to do such a work.
Correct.
Moses did not do it.
No.
The sacrificial system was never able to do this because they had to repeat it over and over and over.
Right.
So, and that highlights how preeminent Christ is in the work of redemption to reconcile people back to God.
The question is, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I was going to say, actually, no, it doesn't make sense.
I step back and I see it now, but
Because we kind of been brought up about this. And
Yeah.
no, we wrestled to figure it out to get it part of us. But yeah, when you first hear it, everything you've been programmed beforehand, just no,
Right.
no, this can't be right.
That's exactly what he's got to be fighting against, because talking to people who have never heard this before, they don't know who this Jesus guy is. But you can be however you are, as far as, alienated and doing evil, do whatever. And he can make you pure in order to be presented to God as blameless. And you go, wait a minute, I'm going to need to register that a little bit more, because I've never heard about it before.
Yeah.
And your natural self is saying, no, I'm not worthy. Even if I'm hearing this, no, there's not a way. I know who I am.
Yeah.
Right. That's the first thing that most people say is, well, he'll never want me. I'm too dirty. I'm too sinful. Okay. And it's almost like, hey, that's exactly who he wants.
Yeah.
But I think if somebody says, well, yeah, certainly he ought to want me. Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You got to go back a little bit. You got to ask yourself that question: why would he want a sinner like me? Because I'm not worthy of that. And if you don't get to that point, then asking Jesus to come in your life, I guess he still will, but it's almost like that's almost the wrong attitude. You got to come in and saying, I have no reason to ask you for this. I have nothing to claim, but I just need to ask you for your forgiveness and your grace. Okay? So those both thoughts have to be running through the minds of the Colossian people, because it's a new thought, and it's really a revolutionary thought. In fact, it gets even more revolutionary when we go to next week, when he talks about the Gentiles can do this. Like,
Oh no!
Yeah.
Blasphemous.
Yeah.
I had you up until you said Gentiles, So.
Yeah. And he's saying, and this is the gospel. This is the good news. It's the good news because you are right. You are alienated with God. You could not have done it. You cannot qualify for it. No matter how much you put in, you can never stand blameless before God. But this is the gospel.
Right.
This is the good news. The bigger question, and I think we're going to get to it even for the Colossians as much as to us, is then how do we live in light of this knowledge? How do we respond to the fact that this is what Christ has done for us? We have been reconciled with the Father by the work of Christ, not our own. We've been made holy, without blemish, without accusation, accepted by God. How do we live as a result of receiving this truth, believing it? What's the consequence of this reality that we're being exposed to? Now, Colossians, now we understand, oh my goodness, This is what he has done. This is who we are. Consequently, how do we live then? That's the crux of the reality of that changes the way we walk with God, knowing what he has done.
Yeah.
The perfect work that he has done. Because sometimes we fall back into more of a legalistic mindset of striving, trying to prove ourselves worthy.
Right.
And because we're struggling still with this idea of being presented holy, blameless before God.
Mm-hmm.
We still strive, we still want to own our own right to be before the Lord, and yet it's been done. And that's why it is good news. It is the best news ever.
Yeah.
You know, that you don't have to do anything. Living consequently to this gospel truth that we've been reconciled with God.
Sure.
Becomes the ongoing challenge that we have as believers. How do we fully live as reconciled people?
See, if he was talking to the Colossians and he had said this, and he said, any questions? A whole bunch of hands would go up.
It was the first all-night prayer meeting going on there. Yeah.
Well, everybody's hand would go up. I said, okay, well, what do we have to do? And the answer comes out, we don't have to do anything. You know, now wait a minute. You already told us something that was revolutionary that I can't understand. And now you're telling me I don't have to do anything?
You receive and participate in it.
That's too much.
You receive it and participate in it.
The only thing, there is something you have to do. You know, you have to accept Christ as your Savior.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a thing you have to do. So anybody says, oh, you don't have to do anything to get grace. Oh, no, that's not the case. Grace is offered to everybody, but if you're going to actually accept it, you got to do one thing, and that's accepting Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that, everything falls. You don't. And it just occurred to me is why did we get into all of this legalistic stuff? Because somebody tries to answer the question.
Yeah.
What do I have to do? Oh, well, since you asked, then you have to do this and this and this. You know, you asked, yeah. And then that starts to build on itself to the point where the legalistic system is just overburdening.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that either.
Yeah.
You know, so the fact that it's that simple, just again, the Colossians, they must have shaken their heads saying, "Wait a minute, we got to talk about this for a long time."
Ron mentioned something last week and just highlighted one element of the all. You know, all the fullness of, and the all. You pick up the all popping up again in this redemption work, or the extension of grace, that it is actually offered to all. In that last line of verse 23, it says, "This is the gospel that you heard." It's not only for and we may read that he's referring to the Colossians. He said, "This is the gospel that you Colossians have heard, and that has been proclaimed to every creature under heaven." You see, and this is a clear indication that this letter is not only addressing the Colossians as a church, but the truth in it actually applies to all of us. This is the gospel that has been proclaimed to everyone under heaven, to understand that this reconciliation is only through Christ. If we will be blameless, holy, presented before God, it's going to take this reconciling that Christ has done.
Yeah.
There's no other way. To every creature under heaven. The second part of his sovereignty to this is because this is the only way to salvation. There is no other option. And the joy of Paul is being connected to this preeminent work that Christ has done.
Yeah.
To bring his people back, the world back to the Father. Any other observation that you may pick up? Something that excites you? there's a condition.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say that.
Yeah, you go ahead. Yeah, look at that. Observe that a little bit.
If you don't jump off the boat, you don't jump off the boat.
Okay.
It doesn't fit into some of the other things that he writes and the other apostles write. Because, you know, I always used to be very adamant against eternal security.
Yeah.
I thought that was just a little cop-out, and then could you lose your grace? Well, of course you could. You could tell God to go, you jump off the boat, and, you know, and you could get out of it. Well, it turns out you can't do that, okay? But here it says, you'll be holy and blameless, if indeed you continue in the faith, firmly established and steadfast, not shifting.
Sure.
That seems to say that you've got to be doing something to keep this.
Yeah.
And I've been reading this thing several times over the last couple of weeks, saying that seems to be a contradiction to the rest of the gospel. So I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. Well, the answer is that's not exactly the way it reads. Okay.
But I can do timelines and decades in my life where I ended up almost in the same period, and I didn't press through into the next thing. So the shifting took place, and I backtracked and stuff.
Yeah.
And then, but my walk with God was still the same as far as I knew Him, but I wasn't walking in everything He gave me.
Yeah.
So when we fully participate, then we're in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we'll probably pick it up.
We'll pick it up because it raises a very, very interesting conversation. This question of eternal security. What do we do with this conditionality of the if you remain steadfast and moved? How do we read this in light of the overall thesis gospel is just proclaimed? Yeah, we'll pick up from there and discuss that element. And it's exciting. Now,
You have to return next week.
next week, just as a hint, we've got to trust the Lord that He has begun a good work in us will bring it to completion till the end.
Yes.
Now, how do we then reconcile this idea of if indeed? You know, what do we do with this condition that seems to suggest possibly that you can actually fall off somehow?
So we'll leave it with that teaser.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there.